Hello and welcome to 2025. We have made it through to the new year here at Coffee with a Kick, and we have a bunch of different match days to come up with results for. We're not coming up with the results, but we certainly are covering them, to say the least, with going all the way back to match day 17 on the 21st of December, starting off there, moving through to 18 and 19 to wrap up everything that has happened over the end of the year, up through the turning of the tide. We're now into the back half of the season with this upcoming match day that we'll cover in our next episode for the preview of match day 20. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. It'll be a little different. We're going to just hit it'll be similar to our Champions League recap, where we just hit all of the score lines, and then we'll come back and talk about some that we found particularly interesting for the day for this particular big time episode. So back to December 21st. Oh, before we go though, since I've been rambling here, anything you want to get off your chest before we start off? How was your Christmas?
It was good. A lot of soccer. I think at one point it was 10 straight days where 30 matches were played across 10 days. It was a lot of matches. Glad it happened. Entertaining for me. Probably not entertaining for the players. They're probably real tired, ready for a break. But, hey, sports are about the fan entertainment. It's not about anything. It's not about the players. As we know, it's about fan entertainment.
Yes.
Anyways, it was exciting. Some good stuff, some bad stuff. A lot of shocking results that I'm glad to talk about.
Yeah, and our picks suffered for it. I will tell you that much. Even the favorites, like if you just went with the smart money, quote unquote, came out just as poorly as us four poor folks who had to pick it going in with just our own brains to contend with. But to the 21st, the first match of that day was one of those ones that you were disappointed in. Aston Villa did beat Manchester City 2-1. Then rounding out that day, Brentford dropped all three to Nottingham Forest at home, 2-0. Ipswich Town continued their relegation-worthy season with a 4-0 loss at home as well to Newcastle. 1-1 draw for West Ham and Brighton. 1-5 loss for Crystal. The home sides did not fare too particularly well, aside from Aston Villa on that Saturday. That was Crystal Palace and Arsenal, 5-1 victory for Arsenal. Then we moved to Sunday, Everton, Chelsea, 0-0 draw. Fulham, Southampton, 0-0 draw. And then my Wolves, 3-0 victory at Leicester City at King Power Stadium. Manchester United drops points, 3 points, a full loss, 3-0 loss to Bournemouth at Old Trafford. And then Liverpool and Tottenham combined for 9 total goals with a 6-3 victory for Liverpool there. Any big ones you want to hit here besides, we'll start with my Wolves. Great performance there as a team we needed to beat. It got us on the right foot, as we can see with our new manager, carrying through to these other 2 match days. But anything else you want to cover here?
Everton drawing Chelsea at home, holding ground. Mm-hmm. I predicted the draw. 0-0 was shocking. But That one was interesting. Crystal Palace going up 1-0 early in the match and then just going to sleep, losing 5-1, also shocking. But, boy, it's like you said, home teams. I think only one home team won. I think Aston Villa was the only home team that actually held serve the entire match day 17. So very strange events going on here in December, right before Christmas.
Yeah. I only got one right that whole match day. I went 1 for 9, only getting the Nottingham victory over Brentford. You got 4 out of 6 right, so you did all right. And then the favorites were 3 out of 7 were correct. Not a lot.
Hey, you'll take it.
Yeah, you were in the positive. 3.42 units. I was minus 6.91, which carried me into the negative for the season. So that's so good. I'm so glad for that. I've now lost money over the course of the season. In the Premier League, I'm still in the green on Champions League, but we will. The favorites are just getting hammered right now. They're minus 34 units over the course of the season up till that point there for match day 18. Now we will head over to Matchday 18. Get back up there. This one here. That should work. Yes, which Manchester City also started off with a 1-1 draw to Everton. Then a 0-0 draw for Bournemouth and Crystal Palace. A 2-1 victory for Fulham against Chelsea at Chelsea's home turf. And I believe that's the. It's one of those London derbies. I can't remember. I think it's the West, but I can't remember exactly and don't want to say for certain. Newcastle continued their run of good form. 3-0 victory over Aston Villa. Nottingham Forest as well continuing on their run. 1-0 victory over Tottenham at home. Southampton, once again, lost, as is their general course of action. 1-0 to West Ham. My Wolves picked up a second victory in a row, as a matter of fact. 2-0 victory over Manchester United. Liverpool managed to take care of business, 3-1 over Leicester. Brighton Hove Albion and Brentford drew 0-0 at the Amex. And then Arsenal managed to barely squeak away with a 1-0 victory over Ipswich Town. Manchester City, again, stumbling against lesser teams. This time at the Etihad. What do you have to say for yourself on that?
Poor team effort. I mean, had the lead, decided to give it up. And it wasn't even a good necessarily goal to give up either. It just, there were a few other moments in this match where I felt City could probably lose. It's gone from possess for the purpose of creating opportunities, like the possession leads to the creation naturally, to now it's like we're just passing around hoping that one of these passes gets into a good area so that we can maybe get a shot on target. I don't know. It was poor performance, was not a good Boxing Day at all. But, I mean, was it the most shocking? I mean, Nottingham, boy, I mean, they, as we'll talk about when we do the little standings review, I mean, they are, after Arsenal just beating Brentford, I mean, they are literally third in the table, I think.
Third in the
which
table.
Is wild.
Yeah.
Wild. They're having a Leicester City 2016 type season. Liverpool is just far and away ahead of them, obviously, but Nottingham beating Tottenham, really great. Wolves beating Man U. I mean, you got to be happy about that one. That was a convincing victory.
Yeah, it was very good. Very good there. I mean, it got us out of the relegation zone. Now in 17th, which is where I picked us to go. So we'll see if, I mean, Everton is kind of falling down to us. We might be able to leapfrog them here. But they still have a game in hand. It's just against Liverpool. So, I don't give them much of a chance. Even if it is the Merseyside derby, I don't give them much of a chance to get a point out of that one with how they're playing currently. I believe it's now been scheduled for February 11th. So we'll get that coming up here in just over a month. But it was a lot of Newcastle is also, we've talked about them being volatile. They may have figured out how to play consistently at this point, which is a bit scary because they're putting in a lot of goals. And it hasn't been against horrid opponents. I mean, the Leicester one, you're like, okay, fine, Leicester. Ipswich Town, fine, that's Ipswich Town. But starting off here, Aston Villa, 3-0 victory of Aston Villa is no joke. And then we'll get into how they continued on with that here in the New Year's bookend, Matchday 19, which Manchester City, again, was the first match on the books. That's 3 weeks in a row that they managed to somehow get first on the docket. This time, though, you go into Leicester City and you hope that you can get a win. If my Wolves can get a win in King Power Stadium, you'd hope Manchester City can. They did. 2-0 victory for Manchester City over Leicester in that one. Crystal Palace, 2-1 victory over Southampton. Nottingham Forest continued their run. 2-0 victory over Everton at Everton. 2-2 draw for Fulham and Bournemouth. Sorry to see it, Flynn. I know you were hoping for a victory there, but at least it was a good match like you'd hope so. Tottenham and Wolves drew at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. A big-time point there by my Wolves, 2-2 draw. Liverpool continues to dominate, 5-0 victory at West Ham's Place. Aston Villa, 2-2 draw against Brighton Hove Albion. Ipswich Town 2-0 victory over Chelsea. Manchester United drops another full 3 points to Newcastle. 2-0 victory for Newcastle there at Old Trafford. And then, as you mentioned briefly here, Brentford did drop all 3 to Arsenal as a 3-1 victory for them on Wednesday the 1st, New Year's Day itself. Which, it was a pretty convincing victory there for Arsenal. But Manchester City finally rights the ship. Have they studied it? Is this going to be, you've talked about this match day, these 2 match days, the 18th and 19th being a big deal because it's the halfway point of the season. Did you feel any sort of stabilization coming into effect for City in that one?
Leicester had their chances in this one. They hit the bar twice. Mm-hmm. They had a penalty shout at one point. So, I think we got lucky with a couple of offside calls, but City did appear more confident as the game went on. And once the second goal went in, you could almost see this, relief fall off of Erling Haaland's face, fall off of other players. It was like, okay, we got it. We're good. Let's just stick to it. So I don't know. It wasn't a dominant win, but it was a necessary win. Yeah. And I think it at least gets you back in the win column so that you can kind of start to inch away. Obviously, the title, it's not gone yet, but it's pretty far-reaching. But City, with the win, have put themselves in a position to still compete for second, third place.
Yeah, it's what else? We can go ahead and any other matches you want to get to before we move into the midway table breakdown.
Well, I sent you the image, but Ipswich Town gets their first home Premier League win since 2002. Yeah. And they do it beating Chelsea, who I'm not sure what happened to Chelsea. Match day 18, Chelsea lose 2-1. Match day 17, Chelsea draw 0-0. They beat Brentford match day 16. But, that's 3 straight match days where they were playing opponents I think they should have beaten, and they end up dropping 7 points.
Yeah.
So, good on Ipswich Town for getting the victory. Hopefully it spurs them on for more competitive matches moving forward. But Chelsea kind of crumbling at the moment. Are we gonna see them kind of be in a Man City type slip? I don't know. But 2-0 at Ipswich, you don't want to be the team that gives them their first home win in the Premier League in 22 years. You don't want to be that team. That can't feel good. Especially when the second goal was scored by Omari Hutchinson, one of their former players.
Yeah, it's salt in the wound for certain there for the Tractor Boys over the Blues. I am glad to see it because we both had Ipswich Town staying up, so that gives us a glimpse of hope. Just that Nottingham Forest up in third really hits your rankings hard. That is tough. No one saw it coming, obviously. Yeah, but that brings us up to date with all the results. We can go ahead and jump into the table at this point, which, Liverpool is in first by a good margin. They're up by 6 points over Arsenal, and they still have that game in hand that we mentioned earlier, the Merseyside derby with Everton, now scheduled for February 11th. So there's still a lot of season left. It is only 2 match days worth of results to get back into place. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility, but with how they're looking, they had that minor hitch there in mid-December where they had some draws against teams that they probably should have just beaten.
Yeah.
And then the delayed match there. But other than that, since their loss against Nottingham Forest, which actually ends up being not a bad loss at this point in the season, looking back at that, we looked at that on the 14th of September, and we were like, this is crazy. Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest at home at Anfield. But now looking back, you're like, okay, I get it. It's a top-of-the-table team. It's a 1-0 victory is not that terrible. And aside from that, they haven't dropped points, a full 3 points anywhere else. So do you think that Arsenal has the capability to draw them back in, or even Nottingham Forest for that matter, who's only 2 points below Arsenal?
At this point, it's going to be, will Liverpool falter? Mm-hmm. I don't think any team's going to draw them in. I think Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, City, even Nottingham, dare I say, they're good enough right now that they can keep getting points, but it's going to take a concerted effort from all 5 of those teams to beat Liverpool every time they play them. So maybe if Liverpool lose to 3 of those teams, there's a chance another team gets there. But at this point, given that Arne Slot, that Nottingham Forest loss is the only loss he had all of 2024, it's not looking too great. I will say January could be a murky month because Salah and Van Dijk are both out of contract in the summer. Trent Alexander-Arnold's also out of contract. There's rumors he could be sold to Real Madrid this January. There's a lot of stuff that could kind of implode the internal team, but they're rocking and rolling right now. It's hard to pick against them to not continue the run.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule, they've gotten most of the teams home and aways out of the way at this point. They don't play Arsenal again this season. They don't play Chelsea again this season. Oh, yes, they do. They play Chelsea on May 3rd. But, there's... Well, great. Now I've just contradicted myself. There's May on late. So they will have time to build up a cushion. But the late April into May, that's where they'll hit a bit of a road bump. They go Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal back to back to back. So that'll be an interesting 3-week stretch there. But yeah, their schedule's pretty nice. Other than that, they've got everybody that you want to have spaced out. They go to the Etihad on the 23rd of February, so that is a big match for Liverpool. It'll be pretty decisive for Manchester City at that point. They'll have to do some work to get up to there, but they will need to get all 3 points from Liverpool to have a shred of hope of having anything happen for their title hopes, which is probably already out of the realm of possibility at this point, being what are they full? They're 14 points down. Yeah, that's not really happening. With a game in hand against Everton, that seems dubious at best.
Anything's possible. The only issue is Liverpool have Mo Salah, who is quite possibly the most in-form Premier League player ever. He, at this point, I believe he has now broken a record for the most goal involvements halfway through a season. He's at 30, I believe he's at. Yeah, 17 goals, 13 assists. He had the most goal involvements of any Premier League player in the whole calendar year of 2024. I mean, if he keeps it up, there's no losing. He has been a second-half monster. I think I saw where 12 of his 17 goals have come in the second half. So
wow,
he's doing the work. And his contract situation is concerning. It seems like there may be, hey, we're just going to win the Premier League right off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Because last he said himself that they're long way off from a new contract, which is very strange for previous contract negotiations. So I don't know, but it's hard to lose when Salah is in such good form.
And did you say that there were any other potential landing spots for him in talks yet?
The only rumors that have been seen is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Almost like a KDB situation. We've accomplished everything. Way to go. Pat on the back. Let's go make $250 million. And then let's be rich forever. Yeah. That's what it seems like maybe at play here for both Kevin De Bruyne and Salah. But with Liverpool, you just hate it. City, if we were in the same position, I'd be a little concerned if we have a KDB out of contract because it's putting that there's a piece of their mind, Salah and Liverpool's, that isn't on the current moment. And you just know that could become a distraction at some point. So I don't know if it will actually affect them, but you've got Van Dijk, Salah, and Trent Alexander-Arnold all potentially leaving in the summer or now as far as Trent Alexander-Arnold. What that does to their team, who knows? But I don't know. There's a lot of teams that have some notable players out of contract in the summer, so we'll see how it plays out.
Could shake up the table for next year, absolutely. Yeah, let's see. And then you had any other of these images you want to cover here real quick?
Well, I mean, what can we say? I knew that Matchday 19 we were going to win because it was Pep's 500th. You got to win. Even after this skid, Pep is still at, I think it said, a 71% win percentage.
71%.
In 500 games in Premier League matches, which is impressive. And then, next closest was Klopp and Mourinho, right at about 61% if we round up. Arsene Wenger, 58%. Sir Alex, 53%. Say what you want. There are plenty of City fans on Twitter after Matchday 18 saying Pep should leave, he should resign, he should be fired. This man he's the best coach to ever walk into the Premier League.
Yeah.
I will say that, bar none, especially given the competition. Mm-hmm. Sir Alex Ferguson, I can safely say the competition, at least across the board, was not as strong as it is now. And Pep came in, had one bad season at the very beginning, and then pretty much was first and second. Won 6 titles in 8 years. So say what you want. He wins everywhere he goes. He's won at Man City. I think he'll turn it around to get second or third this season, but he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, just speaking to that, my brother and I were both at my parents' house over this Christmas break, just speaking to the amount of talent, and it was we were watching, I believe it was Fulham and Bournemouth, so not top of the table teams, still good teams, and he came in. He doesn't watch the EPL with any sort of regularity, but he's very familiar with soccer in general. He's like, so is everyone in the EPL just like the best in the world at this point? Just going to, and you watch it and you're like, this is by far the best day in, day out soccer competition that you're going to watch from top to bottom on the table. Even with Southampton being, as the other image came in here, they're underperforming. They're underperforming. Oh goodness, Sheffield United even at this point, points wise. Sheffield United still terrible goal difference. They had negative 35 goal difference over the 18 matches they had in 2024. Southampton still only at negative 27, but Sheffield United at least had an additional point. So they'll have some work to do to get up. But even for Southampton, you could see them. They would not be in the same position if they were in some other domestic league, top tier domestic league. Just that's the level of skill in the Premier League that you have scattered throughout, all the teams that are there.
Well, to note Southampton, there's an article that I read from the BBC comparing them to the Derby County team, still considered the worst Premier League team ever. Mm-hmm. At this point, halfway through the season, Derby County had more points than Southampton. They had 7. They had scored less goals, only 9 compared to Southampton's 12. But one of the interesting stats is errors leading to goals. Mm-hmm. Southampton is at 11. Derby was only at 7. Mm. So essentially, Southampton's lapses in the midfield and the defense are the reason why they're losing so much. They just don't have a stalwart in the middle, because errors up front with strikers not going to directly lead to goals.
No.
But 11 goals, that's almost as many goals as they've scored this season. And the funny stat was they have 4 players tied for the Golden Boot for their team at 2 goals, which I sure hope they get more than that, but top scorer award. So in the last, this stat was also great. In the last 122 years, only 5 teams have had 6 points or fewer at this stage and did not get relegated. Or no, all 5 were relegated.
Oh, yeah.
None of them stayed up. Currently, the Opta supercomputer gives them a 0.7% chance of staying up. So if you're a betting man, $10 could return you like $7,000 if you choose and they stay up. But currently, as we're looking at it, they haven't let in as many goals as Sheffield. But, we are literally looking at possibly the worst team in Premier League history. As through 19 matches, they're the worst. And it could get even worse as we move into this year.
Yeah, they are a full 10 points out of safety, and my Wolves are on the up and up. So it is tight for the relegation spot aside from Southampton, is what it boils down to. Because Leicester's on 14 points, Ipswich Town on 15 points. Man, it's always sad to see the same three go down as came up, but it does happen with with relative frequency. I mean, it happened last year, if I'm not mistaken.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but hey, speaking of relegation, this will be my last side tangent point. Man United. Their owners cannot be happy with their new manager, who I already texted you is on the hot seat.
Already?
My opinion, no one else's. He already said that, one, managers aren't guaranteed their jobs. He's already basically said he's on the hot seat. And two, after match day 19, when they lost to Newcastle, he said, we're in a relegation fight. We have to be honest with where we're at. At no point, Eric Ten Hag is defiant as ever, but he knows the psychological warfare that now openly saying that we are on and in a relegation fight. I don't think that's going to do well for him. I really don't. Clearly, Harry Maguire came out after match day 17 and said that he's the complete opposite of Ten Hag, which is why it's so hard to implement his system. Again, why would you bring someone like that mid-season?
Yeah.
There's just so many things going into it. But the talk to the media about how we're in a relegation fight, the system's hard to implement, yada, yada, yada. It's just not a good look for a team of Man United's stature. And I think that's going to hurt them even more. I don't think it's going to help them. Maybe he thinks that's going to inspire these guys, but boy, it's going to be tough. And it doesn't seem like they have a big budget for January either for transfers. So he may be right. They may be one of the teams fighting there at the end, which would be very fun for me to see, but not fun for Man United fans.
Well, I don't know if this is the time to do it when you're coming up against Liverpool this weekend and when you have to go to Anfield and maybe just get your keister whacked like hardcore this weekend. They had that good stretch there between match day 10 and 13 where they draw, win. And since then, it's the only bright spot they had was that I think it was the week after when they won the Manchester Derby. And other than that, it's been just tough sledding.
Losing to Wolves is a big deal. Wolves is below them. So when you start losing to the teams like Wolves, if they lose to Crystal Palace, then you really are in a relegation fight. Like, you're losing to the teams that are trying to stay up. And for all that is in me, I wish they get relegated because that would be hilarious. But
circle January 16th. They host Southampton. January 16th. It's a midweek match, one that you can easily get overlooked against a team that is terrible. That we've covered that with great aplomb at this point. But they lose that one. It's going to get serious. It's going to get real serious about relegation possibilities for Manchester United, which is...
If they lose to Southampton, mark my words, Amrin will be fired the next day, if not that night. If you come in and you lose to the worst team, you're out.
I think the discussion about what will happen to Old Trafford will be answered by the people. I think they'll burn it down. I think they'll just burn down Old Trafford and say, we're done here. We're just going to go home. You guys can play at some secondary school. Haha, that's what you call high school in England.
There you go.
At some second... And that would be hilarious. If they burn down Old Trafford, they have to play in the Etihad and then get relegated. That would be crazy.
My mind can't comprehend them losing to Southampton, but boy, that would be
the scenes, as they would say. The scenes if they were to lose to Southampton.
After match day 18, I uttered the words to my brother, and I said, this is probably the darkest day in Manchester footballing history.
Mm-hmm.
You have City who just can't win. They just drew Everton at home. And then you have Man U who gets shellacked by Wolves. They didn't even look competitive, really.
Yeah.
So, boy, it definitely heals my wounds to see Man U doing so bad. I'll say that. But Manchester in general is going through it. Someone put a curse on the city. If you could lift it on the actual city, because Old Trafford's not in the city, if you could just lift it over the city piece, keep it in the surrounding areas, I'd be fine with that.
All right, and that brings us up to date with all the EPL action. A lot of happenings. I'll go ahead and mention how we did over those other two match days pick-wise. Not good is the answer. The only reason why I had positive units in match day 18 was because I got a perfect pick for my Wolves. I went 3-7, you went 4-6. So did the favorites. And then in match day 19, I went 2-8, and you went 3-7. And all three, myself, you, and favorites were greater than -4 units on the week. So we are struggling as much as some of our team. Well, actually, my Wolves are not doing great. So I have no excuse. No excuse anymore. We'll see if we can get it pulled back together here on our predictions for match day 20 coming out in our next episode. But until we get to that, why don't you go ahead and grab your coffee, watch some soccer, and we'll see you on the other side. Here we are.